Hey, Warren.
Hello, 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 hello. You alright?
Yeah, I was just watching you virtually. I just followed your tutorial to put some custom icons in the back office,
Good.
which they're appearing locally, but they're not appearing online. And I don't know if I'm not refreshing app data in
Hmm.
line one. I don't know if app data gets.
Yeah, browser cache can be a bit of a pain, and the site will have to restart and recycle. So if you do a deployment, so when you're working locally, hence they
Yeah.
get picked up, you do a restart, they get picked up on initial load. So if you just deployed or FTP'd the files, then they won't just get picked up. You'll have to
So
restart the
server
site
restart or
or
yeah.
restart the site when's convenient and things. Hello all. Hello
Hello.
Andy. Nice to meet
You're
you.
right. Nice to meet you.
All right, Lottie.
I've remembered where mute is.
Hey, Lottie, Owen, Andy.
Hi.
Happy end of September.
Yes.
Dean Lee, when's your birthday?
How do you know?
Well, because it's very near mine and mine's tomorrow.
Oh, happy birthday tomorrow. Yes. Tuesday, I think, the 3rd. When's the 3rd? I don't know.
Are we live on
Monday.
YouTube, Lauren?
We are live on YouTube. Yes,
So
I have to do the disclaimer. Sorry, you just doxed yourself. If
I've just given away my birthday.
oh no.
Yeah, we might get lots of birthday presents, Warren, from people.
I haven't told you what year though, have I?
Have a PO box.
Perfect. I'll give it a minute or two more. Seb's away today, so I'm filling in for him. Yeah. But it should be a good one. Andy, you've offered to do some PR or work in public to the Tag Helpers repository, so that'd be good.
Yeah. Hopefully you can fill an hour or however long it lasts for.
Yeah, we have an hour, so I'm sure between all of us we can take a look at the code and munge our way through.
Nice one.
Everyone's had a good week so far?
I think I'm still recovering from the community team's visit, actually.
Too much socialing.
Code cabin straight to Denmark for the community team's visit. It was awesome, but a bit low energy.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So, Owen. Hello, Owen. I actually meant Warren. Sorry, Owen. So I just got that automatic message from Umbraco saying you're live on YouTube.
Cool, good. It still works.
How does that? What is it when I join, or do you have to press a button?
So when you join and when an event is on, this bot will just ping you. So if you was to leave the call and come back, you'll get another message. Bit annoying, but
I'm tempted to try it. That's really cool.
I took on your feedback. Yes.
Nice hacking.
Yeah, thank you. With that said, I think we should maybe jump in and let Andy drive.
Yeah, sure. Let me share my screen. One sec.
And there's an option, better text quality. Seb always says if there's an option, or was an option.
Oh, right. How's this look?
Seems okay, but I can see myself.
Can you see it?
Yeah, I can see your Discord.
Nice one. Oh, Discord. No, that's probably the wrong one. Hang on. Change windows. Ah, screens. Here we go. How's that?
Yep, cool.
There we go. Fantastic. So, yeah, a couple of pull requests I've done. One is to the existing our SVG tag helper, and the second one is the introduction of a new tag helper, which is our image or IMG. So I'll start off with the smaller one, and I'll proceed then to the bigger one. So quick demo of what this basically does. A couple of new additions to this one, which I've made. One is to basically fix SVGs if as they get uploaded to the media library. So one thing I've found is, I'll show you an example, is it might be, depending on where these SVGs are downloaded from, could either just be like online or Figma or wherever, that the SVG itself doesn't actually contain a viewbox. It just contains a width and a height attribute.
Yep.
And the viewbox, obviously, as you may very well be aware, is responsive friendly. So having that on screen, it'll just resize itself automatically to the screen. No ifs, no buts. And obviously, this is an example of one that will be responsive, and is what we want to see. So that's the primary differences between these two files. So I've uploaded these to the media library already, and as we can see from SVG demo, as we can see from the HTML, the very basic our SVG tag, no additional attributes, but as we can see here, they look exactly the same. And if we inspect this particular one, we can see that the one that was uploaded without the viewbox now has a viewbox, and it's lost its width and height attributes. Now this is because if we look inside our app settings, so I've created a brand new configuration set for this pull request. And we've got a inline SVG tag helper, and there we've got a flag which says ensure viewbox, which wherever this our SVG tag helper gets used, that'll ensure that all our tag helpers will force viewbox on all of those. So then we're not having to run into the issues where we're having to hack around with the SVG just to get it working. Yes, we can also have that set to false and do it on a more of a granular level. So inside the actual tag itself, we can do something like, what was it now? So if we do ignore app settings equals true, and then ensure viewbox, we can say ensure viewbox equals true for that one. So obviously that's in the event of if we set that to false, and then so then we can actually then, rather than applying it globally, we can set it per tag per SVG.
Yep.
And that also works vice versa as well. So we can set that back to true, and if for whatever reason this particular SVG doesn't play ball with our modification, we can just set that to false, and then it just behaves as it normally would, as if we uploaded it straight to the media library. So yes, that's one of the additions I've made to that. The other one on there is the ability to actually cache the output. So rather than us having to do a file read each time, we can also cache the actual file to memory. Now this is a particular one that I would like to get your feedback on, because I'm not 100% sure if I'm doing it the right way, the preferred way. So yes, so that's one I'll show you right now.
Oh, you're going to have to, if I'm going to read code, I'm going to have to bump the font size, please, Andy.
Oh, sorry.
I'm old man. That's it. Thank you.
There we go. Right, so so here we go. So we've got caching. So if cache, that's obviously if we've got our tag helper telling it to cache, or if our global setting is set to cache and ignore app settings is not set to true. So we define the total number of cache minutes. Also works for raw files as well. So if we've defined the actual URL itself, as opposed to the media library item, and then I've extracted the logic around the original set of code into its own method. So then obviously we can say, right, well, if it's caching, then run that method. If it's not cached, just return. Either way, we're both returning the same file contents.
Yep.
So ultimately, I think the question is runtime cache. Is this a okay approach? Is there a better?
No, this is. I would say this. Yeah. So there's the Umbraco runtime cache would be perfectly fine for this. I don't see any problem with the code at all, to be honest. The only other thing that you could have done, you could have potentially have dropped the caching implementation directly on itself, and then the .NET Core has the cache tag helper itself, so you could have wrapped that instead. But yeah, this is equally just as good and useful. So I think this is just perfectly fine.
And I think as well, there's been a recent PR that's been done for an hour cache, I believe.
Yes, yep. That's Mark Goodson has done one. Yeah, so that the cache would get cleared anytime you've done a publish of content or media or dictionary items. It would invalidate the cache.
So right, I'm thinking if we were to do like our cache.
Yeah, exactly.
Basically.
And then you was to then put that our SVG inside it, then that would potentially do the same thing.
Oh, there we go. So,
but yeah, I don't think there's any harm in having an additional option on the SVG. Personally, it just gives people more options and flexibility, as long as it's not enabled by default, and then you kind of opt in or.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, it saves on sort of the accidental. If somebody's forgotten to accidentally add that particular part of caching to the actual HTML, it's there right straight out of the box, and then that's good. That's good to know. Yes, I've seen a lot of like blog posts and performance tips regarding caching, and I've seen different methods and dependency injection approaches to doing it. So yeah, that's why I was a bit unsure as to. I know this one works, but I don't know if it was the most preferred.
It's our implementation or wrap around the underlying cache in .NET Core anyway, so it's the right one to be using.
Awesome, that's good to know. Yeah.
Kaboom! Was that from me or?
That was from you, yeah.
What did I? Can only use media item. Can't tell which property to use. Okay, yeah. So just.
I think basically if we've applied both.
Yes. You don't know which one that you're going to use. Yeah.
Yeah, it chucks us out. Yeah.
Cool. That all looks good. I don't know if anyone else has got any comments, or I know Dean, you're an avid SVG fan. Would you be frustrated that ViewBox is automatically injected as opposed to the width and height being replaced in the SVG?
Probably not. I mean, we're using SVGs in so many different places and so many different methods. And generally speaking, you probably would want the view box. I hadn't even thought about this. I am interested in the caching though, because I've been looking at performance stuff lately, and I just don't know if we're setting caches. Do we also need to be looking at cache busting as well? For example, if I don't know, say you update an image and the client's at the other end of the phone going, I can't see it. It's still the old, I don't know where the line sits between caching and cache busting. Same with other static assets like CSS and JavaScript as well. Mm-hmm. So I don't know what Umbraco's best practice is for that.
So yeah, that you bring up a good point, Dean. With this piece of code, obviously the cache will only ever get invalidated when the time has expired, I'm assuming, Andy, unless you've put in some other code to help kind of get around cache busting.
No, it's just basically what you see. So yeah, so I think in our in our settings, we've set a default time limit of 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously that's 3 hours from when the cache was originally created. So if you've got 5 users within that 3 hours, it'd be that first user, and then a sixth user that comes on after 3 hours would then get a fresh file. But I don't know what the process is for forcibly removing that cache item or all cache items from the runtime cache.
There is code so we could look at that depending on time, or if you still wanted to show the other PR and get some feedback and input on that. But yeah, we could maybe implement something along those lines. So in the app caches runtime cache, I think there is clear cache item by key or something, so you can then, obviously you've given it a cache name as some constant there, or you're building up, so you can clear by the key.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. So you could do something like build some sort of notification handler, so that whenever a media file gets altered, and if it matches that media item key, we could remove that.
Yeah, that would be a good way to solve the problem.
That's the kind of thing I was envisaging.
That the content editor comes along and uploads or changes the SVG, and then be like, why isn't it not updated?
Yeah, I'm sure we've all had it.
Yep. Half the problem
you're saying to a
is
client,
cache
Control F5,
invalidation.
Control F5, and it's still not working. And
yeah, okay. I'll make a mental note of that one to have a look at some stage. Or if we've got time, maybe.
We can maybe jump in. Is there anything else in this specific Tag Helper that you wanted feedback or input on, or?
No, I think that's about it. Really, I think the other one as well. I think I've snuck in is the ability to add CSS classes to the actual SVG tag itself, which wasn't available before.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so I've just passed that through. But yeah, I'm using. Briefly scroll down to this bit, but I'm using HTML agility pack to read in the SVG contents and all that. Probably one of the reasons why I've added cache into also when having to redo all this logic on each page per SVG.
Yeah, per SVG.
So it's not just file reads; it's obviously the processing of that file and spitting out an output.
Yep. Makes total sense. Was there any scary regex? Obviously, that all looks fine at a quick glance. Saw some regex. Extract decimal from string.
I think this was a quick Google search and finding something to convert a string to decimal. But it looks to work. So
yeah, no, that's fine. So widths can be a decimal then in SVGs. Oh, okay.
Yeah, weirdly, even though obviously pixels can't.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like, how could it be width 5.2 or whatever, or 520 point whatever? But okay, learn something new.
I mean, I think if you extract it from something like Figma, that will take the literal width of it rather than rounding it down.
Right.
From memory. But yeah, it's just in the event of if it
ever was
happens to be this decimal.
Yep. Nice.
Awesome. Cool. So our next one is a image tag helper. So I've added a few demos here just to highlight obviously what the results of each approach. So this one is if we've got 3 separate image tags on our page.
Mm-hmm.
If we inspect that and go to network, just refresh this. Refresh that. You can see here that we've got 3 of every single image, and all 3 of those are each one of these are the 3 different variants with so this one's got width of 200, one's got 400, and one's got 600, and obviously potentially different crop aliases as well. So obviously that's not good for page speed and performance. It's downloading more than you need. So yeah, so that's just an example of what not to do. Another one is something that we're probably more familiar with using picture tags. Exact same approach of having of all three URLs with different widths and crop aliases. But obviously, as you can see here, we're only showing them based on these media queries to download them at one particular time. So I will show you that, but obviously you get the idea of what will happen there. And then so here's a implementation of what I've built. So here we're going right, show it, bringing through the media item. So this is our image with crops, or media with crops. I can't remember the word was. Yeah, media with crops. There it is. And then we're saying right. So I'll just jump over to the app settings for a quick second. So we can see here that we've got a flag here for mobile first. So by having mobile first, then we're saying mobile images are the priority, and then everything else should then inherit everything from bottom up. And then obviously by having desktop first, essentially, we're then defining our properties for desktop, and then everything else trickles down. So I'll show you what that particular flag does there. But what we're saying here is, right, well, this is what we want our mobile width to be, 200, and with a crop alias on mobile. And then we've got a sizes property, which again, I'd like to get an idea of your feedback with if there's a better way of inlining this inside our HTML rather than to create new lists and defining that. It's a bit, I find it a bit ugly, but if there's a way to sort of like shorten that down, I'm all ears.
Doesn't necessarily, it could be child elements inside the R image picture tag or R image made up tag helper.
Yes, so
rather than attributes, so you can then just have a new tag that is size, and then that has an attribute of medium or whatever. That would be my potential idea in terms of how it could be improved.
I was having this sort of like debate with myself, and I wasn't quite sure which was going to be like the more user-friendly approach.
For me, obviously, tag helpers are designed, I would say, more for people who are used to front-endy code in terms of a bit more comfortable, and then having to kind of switch context in terms of putting some inline C# inside an attribute of a HTML tag might be a bit confusing for some people, but that's just my opinion. I don't know if anyone else has got any.
And I think you're completely right. Bang on money with that one.
We're looking at this at the moment again for performance, and one of the things that's recommended is adding the width and height attribute to images, whether it's using source set or if it's just an image tag. But what I didn't know after all these years is all that the browser does is then takes that width and height and converts it to a CSS aspect ratio. So the other day I thought I'd give it a try, and Google Search Console went, right, that's fine, and all the error messages went away. So I thought I'd better double check before I start implementing it everywhere. So I've asked a couple of performance people like Harry Roberts and a few other people on Twitter, and they all came back with exactly the same comment, that it's just getting converted to an aspect ratio. So our plan going forward is, rather than using the width and height attribute, is to calculate the aspect ratio and just put some inline CSS into the image. And what that does is, rather than hard coding normally we most of our images are 16 by 9, but you know what it's like. You'll get a client upload a portrait image, and you can deal with that, using CSS and make it fit within the 16:9, but they might not want that. So what we're thinking about at the moment is that we grab the aspect ratio from the crop and just add it as, you know, aspect ratio is 60, but brilliant. There you go.
You know what? I think this is a particular feature I've recently ripped out.
I'm gonna be honest and say I've got a feeling if for CMSs it's a really good way forward. The only thing you're left with is in source set. Obviously, it's measuring the size of the whole screen rather than the container, and you might find yourself having to create different sets of source sets for something that appears in, I don't know, a sidebar, or something that's small in one, you know, at one resolution and larger at another resolution. What I'm hoping for is that query units will be made available to source set as well. So we've currently got container query units available for container queries. Fingers crossed, some of the people that are a bit more influential than me have asked for them to be made available to source set as well. And once we've got that, we should, in theory, have fully responsive images, and it won't matter what shape they are, whether they're landscape or portrait. I say it won't matter. I mean, you'll still have to implicitly set the aspect ratio to avoid cumulative layout shift, which I think is what everyone's referring to by performance.
Yeah. So I think I've recently seen this myself, where you can actually apply. I think it's only a very recent implementation with HTML, is that you can actually add width and height attributes to the source tag. So I was having this issue because obviously if you've got different crop aliases, like you can see here, we've got one for desktop, one for mobile. If this mobile one happened to be like more of a 1-to-1 aspect ratio, and desktop was more sort of 2-to-1, you know, it's still going to affect the
that is a caveat. If you've got art direction, in other words, yeah, you're right. If you've got on a desktop, you've got a 16:9. On a laptop, you've got a square image, and on a phone, you've got a portrait image of all crops of the same image. Then that is an issue. However, that's why I started thinking about grabbing the aspect ratio from the crop URL, doing a calculation, and just applying it as an inline style.
Yeah. So
on each of the crops, and that I think that would be. It's a very common problem in all CMSs, not just Umbraco, and that could solve all of our issues where we've got clients wanting to upload all different shapes and sizes of image.
Look at this particular one here. As you said yourself, the browser
it converts it automatically. Yeah,
automatically converts it. Yeah, so we can see here that it's pulling through 600 by 300, which is relative to this particular source set that we've got going in. And that's simply because I've obviously defined the width and height on the source. And then obviously if I was to reduce this down to something that's below 768, there we go. So we can see there we go, 400 by 400, so that's calculated there. So,
and that line there, that's the important one. You don't actually need the width. Yeah, you don't actually need the width and the height. You only need the aspect ratio. And if you run that through Lighthouse, it will go, yep, lovely job.
Yeah. And I think what you could do is you could even override that at a class level by basically saying width is auto and height is auto. So then they're essentially nullified, but it's the actual aspect ratio property itself that.
I've just been setting width 100%, max width 100%, and that seems to do the job. But yeah, you could override it, and you could override it dynamically, and you could do lovely animations, you know, like Ken Burns effects of it zooming in and out within that same aspect ratio. You can even position the image differently, and we could probably hook up settings in Umbraco for the end user possibly connected to the focus dot, and that could possibly set where the image appears within that aspect ratio as well. So yeah, there's a ton of stuff you can do. Aspect ratio's just been a godsend. It's amazing.
It's, I think as well, if you run a page speed score and you get that horrible thing in red which says, you know, you've not added width and height attributes to image tags. I think if you click into the article on on web.dev, I think it does mention about, you know, you can use you know, we recommend that you use width and height, but you can also use inline and an inline aspect ratio to.
I'll put a link to that article in the chat.
Nice one. But yeah, so
what does this spit out then? So you've got that image tag. What is the markup it spits out?
Let's break this down. So so obviously we've got here a bunch of sizes, and if we look inside our configuration class, which has got all of our default values, this is a bunch of preset sizes that I've taken from the Bootstrap library. So we're saying, see, we've got small all the way to extra large, and if we look inside, wrong one. If we look inside this one, we're basically saying here is kind of basically delivering what we've done up there, really. So we're saying, right, well, 200 should be what should be on the image tag, and then if we then obviously want to set for medium-sized screens, which is 768 and above, set that to be 600 width with the aspect ratio of desktop. Sorry, with the crop alias of desktop. And like what we've got up there, we've got a min width of 576 for the small screens, and then for those those particular size screens, we want to set a 400 wide image with the mobile aspect ratio. So if we look at what's going on, if I save that actually, just so we can see what's happening on the front end. So again, this is kind of a like for like of what I've just seen before I refreshed. Difference being is that it's generated all this code for us, all the picture tags from all that. So yeah, so it's grabbed all the screen sizes from our website settings, from our app settings. It's also applied some native lazy loading with a bunch of other performance friendly tags. I'm not quite sure what key code in the sync does. I think that just basically means just to wait until the page is loaded before downloading it. Fetch priority, I believe, is basically saying it's below the fold of the screen, and you know, load it again after it's loaded all the more high priority items on the page. Yeah, so we can actually add these media queries ourselves, these media sizes ourselves within the media queries attribute. So we can say here, media queries. Be good if there was IntelliSense for this. So again, media queries. Inside that we had small, medium, large. So there we could probably define that there. So we could put that, just say 300 for argument's sake. But obviously, I think we'd then obviously have to. I've done that one. We'd then have to populate all screen sizes for this for us to override it. But you get the idea. So yeah, if we look at inside the code.
A while ago, Warren, somebody said something about not wanting app settings to get too big. Do you think there might be a case further down the line where you have a separate UmbraCollab.TagHelpers.json with all the tag helper stuff in if people end up using 20 tag
Yeah,
helpers.
so yeah, if there becomes a lot of configuration, then need to figure out some JSON schema that will merge with the Umbraco JSON schema so that you get some completion. Problem for another day, but yes.
It's really cool. I had no idea that you could configure it in app settings anyway. So yeah, super amazing.
Yeah. Oh no, have we lost Andy?
Oh yeah.
Oh, I'm back.
You're back.
No idea what happened then. I think Discord just restarted itself.
That's perfectly useful.
Just as you're talking.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think as I was saying.
Yes,
you
you took.
it had its own. If it had its own file and could have its own schema or its own IntelliSense. Yeah. So what's it doing now? Right. So the screen sizes.
This is the SVG one, isn't it? Yeah.
Get confused myself. So yeah, so we've got all the screen sizes here. So we're taking, so we're looping through all the image sizes. So this is our sizes property on our tag. We're looping through each one of those in the list. Probably rip some of this out just to replace it with some more inline elements. But we're also saying that if the screen size on that image size in that list is extra large, then grab the integer of the screen size screen size that's applicable to that. And then here we're going. So we're taking that min width value as an integer, and then in our source attribute down here, this is where I was talking about mobile first before. So if it's mobile first, then set the min width to the min width of that particular screen size. But if it's more desktop first, and then we're doing max width instead, and then we're just deducting 1 off that min width value. So then it applies to from the opposite direction. So yeah, I think mobile first is probably preferred, but some developers might decide that they want to apply all sizes at desktop level, and then mobile just receives that as a media query as opposed to the opposite way around. But yeah, so we can see that we only ever defined the width on all of these, and height is automatically calculated based on either if the crop alias has been set. So we take the width and height of the crop, and we automatically calculate the height based on that, based on the width that we originally defined. Yeah, and then obviously that spits out the height attribute for that. So yeah, so that's that. Yeah, we're also doing the same thing for the actual if we've uploaded just a file URL as opposed to the media library item.
Right. Yep.
And instead of but the major difference is that we're just not using crops for this, so we're not including crops. But yeah, I have added a little to do on this to figure out a better way of doing file source with a manual width query string on there. I was going to use URL.getCropURL, but I think that's only something that's available on the view.
You should be able to inject that into the class. I think it's IURL provider, and then from there you should be able to get the crop URL and things like that.
Right. Okay.
I believe this is off the top of my.
Oh, there you go. Good memory.
Yeah. So you can inject that.
Right. And then let's just. I won't do this just yet, but just for argument's sake, we could do something like let's go all the way down here. So like what? Get crop.
Yes,
Oh, no.
I think it's
Get
under
URL?
get URL. I'm not really. This is really testing my memory. Get URL, and then in there, I believe there is an overload or a specific argument. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's the content. I'll have to look it up for you and get some notes.
Nice one. Yeah. So yeah, so that's kind of like one of the little bugbearers that I thought, well, let's just get this out the door just so it kind of works, and then I'll figure out later on.
Yeah. So you had a fourth demo. I noticed in your page. What's the difference or the fourth demo that you wanted to show?
So I think that the only difference there is that we were just defining a hard coded URL to the actual file itself, using the source attribute. Everything else was primarily the same. Different. I think instead of defining crops, we're defining the height, because obviously if it's a URL, we don't know what the aspect ratio of that image is. So which is why I've manually added a height attribute to that. Again with the same thing for the actual size object itself. And yeah, that kind of like just delivers the height manually instead of us automatically calculating it, if that makes sense. But yeah, so some of the other little additions I've done to this is lazy loading. So as you saw before in the settings, we've got use native lazy loading. So I've set that as true as default, but some people might prefer to use a more JavaScript approach than actual letting the browser handle it. So if we look at the way I've implemented it, see there as well is I've got another flag to say whether it's which is another property against the tag, which says whether it's above the fold or not, because we don't want to lazy load anything that's above the fold. So yeah, so if we're using a JavaScript approach, we swap out the source attribute for a data source attribute. So a lot of plugins, such as like lazy sizes, and I think there's one called vanilla lazy load. There's a bunch of other ones. Yeah, they'll prefer that they want obviously to bring that in via a data attribute. And we can also say in our global app settings to bring through a low quality image instead of a placeholder. So if we might want to bring through something that's the same width and height but a quality of like 5%, which will obviously be significantly smaller and might not, it'll obviously show something before the actual full quality of images has been downloaded and produced. But there's also another approach that you can do instead of downloading a second image. And you can actually do an inline SVG inside the source attribute, which is essentially just a blank SVG with the view box set to the same width and height of the image. So then it fills the image with the same aspect ratio. So it creates a space ready for the image for when it's eventually downloaded and in view. So you don't get that sort of flick of content. So yeah, so you've got the choice there of either downloading an image or putting a little placeholder in its place.
Nice.
So that you don't get that. And yeah, so some libraries like to ask you to put a CSS class on that particular image. So by default, I've added lazy load, which is one that lazy sizes opts for, but you can actually do an app setting to override that to be something like just the word lazy or something.
Yep.
And then that just works. And yeah, there we go. You get the lazy load placeholder preference. So you got the SVG or a low quality image option.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I think. Oh yeah, the other one is apply aspect ratio, which is I think what Dan was talking about. So we can actually add the aspect ratio style to inline in our actual image tag, which I don't think it's going to work for if we've got different aspect ratios in our source, in our crops. I think it's just going to take whatever the static aspect ratio that we throw at it, which is obviously going to override the browser implementation. But yeah, so I've not enabled this by default, but you can enable it if you want to, and add it to the actual image tag. But yeah, I think that's the full fat explanation of what's there. Yeah, if it's an image that's in like above the fold, such as like a banner image, or potentially in like the navigation or the header, we can actually tell it to switch it to be loading and eager, which kind of like puts it at the very top priority level along with that one.
Andy, are you saying that? So that's exactly what I was after. What you've done there with the aspect ratio.
Yeah.
Is that grabbing the aspect ratio of the original image, or can you grab the aspect ratio of crops?
Yeah, well, I think it does grab the aspect ratio of the crops. So if we check this out, wrong one, sorry.
Because if that's the case, you can do away with the width and height attributes altogether, and literally just apply an inline CSS aspect ratio.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we could do here is add some additional bits to his, which says output attributes dot remove, and then remove the width and height to that. So then we're solely relying on the actual the aspect ratio inside the style property.
Which, unless I'm missing something here, could allow, if somebody's just adding a single image and its portrait and all the other images in the page are 16:9, it should come in with its portrait aspect ratio. Would that be correct?
No, so I think that's one of the problems, is that it's taken the original size from this section here, not taking into account the sizes that we're pulling through for other screen sizes. So it's like mobile here, obviously these two will share the same aspect ratio, so it's not too much of an issue. But anything that's medium screen size up, which has, I think, what was it, 600 by 300, I think I say, yes. So it's like a 2:1 aspect ratio instead. Then if our style aspect ratio is 1:1, then it's going to initially size itself as 1:1, and I'm not quite sure what the results of that will be. I think it'll cause the desktop image to be skewed. I could be wrong. I mean, that's definitely worth
depends
testing.
what other CSS is being applied, like if you're using cover or fit or
object fit or something.
Yeah, object fit, etc. But because if we can grab the crop URL.
We do grab the crop width and height and apply that to the actual height variable we've got, that gets inherited by quite a few things lower down. So it does say, if there is a crop, grab the crop, work out what the height is based on the width that we've supplied it against the image or source tag. Actually, in this case, it'll just be the image tag, and then that's what ultimately gets used by our aspect ratio. So yeah, so if our original aspect ratio, if our original crop was 1000 by 500, and we've specifically set against our image to be 200 width, then naturally it would be 200 by 100 as an aspect ratio. But yeah, so I think it's available, but I think it's just one of those things that just needs to be tested, just see if it actually is useful or not to the actual developer who's building the site, and also
I think it's fantastic. I think it's nearly there for modern layouts. I think it's great.
awesome. Thank you.
What a good tag helper.
Yeah, nice work, Andy.
Thank you.
Yeah, obviously, when the PR comes in, yeah, we'll look over it together. But yeah, at first glance, it all seems good, and yeah, we'll get it merged in and get it shipped out. But
Awesome.
Owen, Lottie, Paul, Rachel, any comments or any feedback? Because day to day I don't implement sites, so all of this image stuff and picture stuff and resizing is a bit over my head these days. Obviously, it's moved on since the days of spacer gifs and nested tables. Anyone got any inputs or comments for Andy?
As also don't do that sophisticated front ends myself. I mean, if Dean's smiling, that's probably enough for me. Can also someone do a talk about the tag helpers maybe at the UK festival in November? Just a thought. I think they could do with some promotion.
Yes, that is a good little nod.
There you go, Andy.
Yeah.
Do a talk, please.
Not quite there yet. It took a lot for me to get on Discord.
Fair enough. Sorry.
Fair enough.
One
Baby
step.
steps. Baby steps. We'll get
Yeah.
you there next year.
Fun.
Yeah, no, really good work. Lottie, are you saying we have a date for UK Fest?
I believe November the 18th. I know that the Gold
Ooh.
Summit is confirmed on November the 17th, if I've got my Thursdays and Fridays correct. We just need the actual official notification to go out. But yeah, the Gold Partner Summit is definitely the 17th. So November, Friday the 18th.
Okay, good stuff.
Date. But no tickets or CFP or anything is open yet.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've not heard anything from this side. Cool.
It looks really good. I think the only thing I'd say is alt text, and this is a wider discussion, should come from the media picker, not from the image.
Yeah, so it
So
does
it's in
actually.
context.
It does actually do that. I did. We're thinking something completely different. It's okay. I think I've forgotten to pass across that piece of that code, but yeah, absolutely, it should come across from the media picker. I think by default, Umbraco out of the box doesn't ship with an alt text field against the media item data type.
I think you can get it from there, but really, and this is why I said it's a wider discussion. It's a narrative of the page rather than a property on an image, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's sort of a wider thing, but I'm really pleased it's in there.
Yeah, so I think this is more of a filler, really. So rather than having no alt text, it just added something just to appease SEO. But absolutely, I think that's a good idea to maybe add as a one of the tag helper configurations is to define the alias of the alt text field against the media item, and then we could, if obviously that value exists, we can pull that through and use that instead of what this is delivering, because obviously that's more of a true representation of what the image is, as opposed to something that's just taking the file, splitting up the actual file name and returning that instead.
If we could pass in alt text as well, so we could get it from
somewhere
else,
Yeah, we
if I
could
missed
actually.
that, I apologise. I did join a bit late.
No, it's fine. Yeah, I don't think that's. I don't think that's something. Oh, no, it is something. Hang on.
Right, Rachel, so I've been asking about this for years, and some of the pushback I got was the way you describe an image in the media library might not be the same way you want to describe it in the page.
Yeah.
So we've made a text fallback that uses the same syntax, the mustache syntax. So you could you could pull the alt text from the media library in as the default, and then offer the user, something like our text fallback editor, the ability to overwrite the alt text on a page by page basis. Because that seemed to be one of the objections when I initially suggested it. And I know it's a description of the image, but context is important as well.
That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah, context. So, like, if we take the Queen as an example,
We all take the Queen as an example.
We'll take her as the second time I've used her as an example this week. You might want to say, use a context of a picture of same image, say, of her on tour in one article as the Queen has passed image in another one. I've seen people
100%,
yeah.
Even just a group shot, you might have a group shot and you might say Paul Seal attending UK Fest, and then you might say, Rachel attending UK Fest in another page, in a group shot. So yeah. But I just think offering a fallback to the default would be the simplest way to do it. And the other thing I thought of, which might be a bit controversial, is that if the user doesn't provide alternative text, the Microsoft AI Azure image, I can't, what's it called, Warren?
Service.
Yeah, image recognition.
You know the thing I mean.
Yep.
The Azure AI image thing is fantastic and doesn't do a bad job at describing images just as a default, and then the user could override it after that as well.
We've tried that when it first came out. It was a bit shite when it first came out. We haven't tried it again. We've tried it in Word documents, so Word's got an accessibility checker in it as well. And we've tried it in different languages, and it's still a bit shite in other languages.
Okay.
But yeah, I think that's a brilliant idea. I think the image, I can't remember I think it's moved on.
They're already offering it in Edge, I think.
Yeah.
So if there is no alt text, it will write one within the browser. But
it's based on a prediction of accuracy, isn't it? We
but
think this is the truth.
But just back in Umbraco world, we wrote the text fallback just simply for when you name a page that it creates the page title and offers you for SEO stuff. But actually we've started using it in all different places now. And I think having a fallback in core would be great, seeing as it's based on core principles anyway, of just using the mustache to implement it. So you can append and prefix and what have you within the mustache, so it's really quite useful. Just a thought. 100% alt text though. Yeah.
Just based on what you were saying there about having being able to define it yourself within the tag. So obviously you can see here that where it's if you haven't defined it, then that's where it then goes, right, well, I'll add it alt tagging for you, and then try and attempt to generate the file source from that. I think that only, looking at this now, actually, I think it only applies to if you've actually got a URL defined. I don't think it does it based on the media item. So something I need to look into. But yeah, I think we're on the right tracks.
Look.
Yeah, good stuff. I've just posted a link in the chat. I don't know if you had noticed or had known that Yevon has done or updated Slimzy that is doing responsive images and has a tag helper. I didn't know if you had seen that or was inspired by anything from that at all, Andy.
No, I didn't even know that existed. So,
well, there you go. Something to look at as a point of reference to see if there's anything that you can swap notes with and learn from each other.
Yeah, I mean, I've also been advised before that other front-end frameworks such as React and Vue have very similar helpers. It's just something I haven't yet had a look at. But no, I think we're at a stage where it's kind of like doing a job. I think there's definitely a use case now for seeing what else can be done to further improve what's already there.
Yeah, no, really nice work.
Nice one. Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, no worries. Well, we're always here every week, or most weeks, or most Thursdays. Come along and either join in the chat or come and show something else. So it was really good.
Nice one.
Has anyone got anything to add or wrap up or give any more feedback to Andy before? Because we're practically bang on time for 1 o'clock.
Great job, Andy.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
thank you, Andy.
Very much.
And happy birthday tomorrow, Lottie.
Oh, thanks. You know, there's a postal strike, so all those cards you've sent me won't arrive.
Oh, what?
I know.
Sorry.
Better get it for Christmas. It's like Mark Mars arriving for Christmas.
Excellent. Okay then, let's wrap up, and I'll see you all another time or next week.
Yeah.
Thanks for hosting, Warren.
Yeah,
Cheers,
no worries. Cheers.
Thanks very
See you
much.
later all.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye.